Welcome to this video taking you through the steps of subdividing your warp in preparation for Kishitara weaving. In this video we will open tabby A with our shed roll and subdivide the upper layer of warp threads, then transfer that pattern A subdivision to the back of the loom to store it. Then we will open tabby B with our string heddles, subdivide the other set of warp threads, then transfer that pattern B subdivision to the back of the loom for storage. So you'll see at the moment I've got my shed roll shed open and I have thrown my tabby, my ground weft in that shed. Now I also want to put my cross back in. So I have two sticks ready, two dowels ready to hold my cross. I'm going to put one into the shed that's opened by the shed roll, and then I'm going to open the shed with the string heddles here with the string heddles, and I'm going to put my other dowel in there. So now I have my cross, and I'm just going to check my cross to see that it's nice and even. I can see a pair of cross threads here. I'm doing this because I want to make sure that all my threads are held completely in order when I do this step. So I can see now that all the threads in the tabby A shed, the shed roll shed, are all sitting nicely in order. Now I want to find the center pair. So to do that I'm just going to count in from the outside by taking equal numbers of threads from each side. It doesn't really matter how many each time. 2s and 3s and 5s are easy to spot. Depends on what my fingers grab hold of, really. And I work my way inwards until I find the center pair. And there is the center pair, right there. So I'm going to put my pickup stick in there to keep track of which is the center pair. And now I want my cross nearby because I want to keep everything nicely in order. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand in the main shed roll shed at the front, the tabby A I call it, and I'm going to continue one direction first. I'm going to go left, picking up 2 and dropping 1, picking up 2, dropping 1, all the while making sure that my cross helps me keep all my threads in order. So I'm keeping a decent amount of tension on the warp so that I can be confident that my threads are still in order. 2 up, 1 down, all the way across. 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, and that is fit perfectly. Now I want to make sure that I have only ever dropped 1. I can see nice pairs at the front, but the ones in between I'm going to actually have a look underneath. You probably can't see that too well on the video, but I lift that up and I have a good look. There's only singles under there. The other way I can check it is I can bring my pickup stick right forward to the front of the warp, and from experience I know that that spacing is right. Now I want to work from the center back out to the right. So I'm going to put my fingers in here. My last pair that I picked up is that center pair, so I want to skip 1 and pick up the next pair. Skip 1 and pick up the next pair, skip 1 and pick up the next pair. This warp is narrow enough for me to do this on my fingers, but if I had a very wide warp I would probably be using another dowel or sword to hold all of these threads that I've already separated out, all these pairs that I've separated out. So I'm going to work across to the right, skip 1, pick up 2, skip 1, pick up 2, all the way, and I ended up with a single one by itself. I'm going to ignore that because I just don't want it. I'm only interested in the pairs because that's how we work our Kishitara, around pairs of threads. So I have now all the way across the 2 up 1 down subdivision of my A shed. So I now have my pattern shed held on my pickup stick here, and I want to transfer this subdivision back behind my string heddles here. So I'm going to take out my cross for a while, and I'm going to put in a thicker sword here where the 2 up 1 down is. So I'm going to take this wider sword and move it closer to my string heddles and tip it up on its side. So now you can probably see that we have the A threads, the upper threads of the shed, are now subdivided into the pattern threads and the others. So now I can put in a dowel behind the string heddles in the same space that I've opened up here with the sword, and we can move that to the back. Now this is now the dowel that I'm going to use to hold this pattern shed while I'm weaving Kishitara. But occasionally these fall out, so I'm also going to put in a thread to save it just in case. So here's a nice pink thread that I've got ready. So I put that through the same space as my dowel is holding and just tie it in an overhand knot. Occasionally I want to take that dowel out on purpose too if I'm transporting my warp somewhere. So there, now we have that holding it at the back. There's already a black one there. That black one's holding the space that the shed roll goes in there. So I've got the black one, I've got the pink one, and while I'm working with this shed for pattern A, I also want to mark the middle pair. When I'm weaving, sometimes it's great to be able to find the middle pair quickly when I'm starting a new motif and I want to start it right in the center. This is more useful when I've got a really wide warp with lots and lots of pairs. So there we are, there's the middle pair, and I'm just going to put this purple thread around it so that I can find it quickly when I'm weaving. So there we are, we have our A shed divided into the pattern subshed, and it's held back here in the stick. So now what I want to do is I'm going to put my cross back, but this time I'm going to do it with, I'm actually going to use the pattern shed for A, and I'm going to put in the B shed, the string heddle shed. So I've opened up my string heddles and I'm just putting a dowel in the B shed. So here we have a cross that's the B shed against just the pattern A's. This is because I want to make sure that my pattern pairs for A and B are sitting between each other properly. And this is vital for your Kishitara designs. So I'm now going to go across, I'm going to find in my B threads a pair of threads that sits between a pair of the A patterns. So there's a pair of threads that sits in between, and I want 2 up 1 down all the way across. So this pair over here is the next pair in that direction. And now I'm going to go across 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, and as I go I want to check that all the pairs I'm picking up sit nicely between the pairs on the A pattern. Drop 1, pick up 2, does it sit between? Yes it does. Drop 1, pick up 2, does it sit between? Yes it does. And I'm just going to keep going. To be honest, sometimes I do several before I stop to check that we're still falling in between the A pattern threads. We'll go all the way across, 2 up 1 down, to make the bee pattern subdivision. 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down, 2 up, 1 down. I don't really want the 1 up, I'm only interested in pairs, so I'm just going to leave that one out. So now I have both of my pattern subdivisions. This is the pattern A and this is pattern B. And I'm going to have a good look to check that they do all fall in between each other and they mesh nicely. And when I'm happy with that, I can actually take this A pattern out and I can replace my B pattern with a sword. I think I might use my narrow sword. So there's my sword. I need my B still, which will now slip underneath. And I'm going to put in my bigger sword into my B shed. So now I have my big sword in my B shed, the one that's opened by the string heddles, and I have the subdivision of that on my little sword, sitting directly above it. It can slide back and forth. And I need to transfer this B pattern subdivision to the back behind the string heddles where it's going to be stored. To do that, I need to stand both of these swords on edge. And so I'm going to turn the large sword on edge and I'm going to turn the small sword on edge, and it needs to be fairly close to the string heddles for this to work out. When I get them close enough, I will find that there opens up a little tiny space over here. It's like a triangle, and this is the place where 1 out of every 3 threads is hanging down and 2 out of every 3 threads is up from the B set. I need to get my sword through there. So now that I'm going to get both of my swords on end here, I will strum a little bit to make sure that that little triangle opens up, and I want to get something into that little space. The first time you do this, it's a bit hard to know if you're in the right spot. So you might like to get someone to sit on the side and see if you've got it right. If you don't have anyone to help you and you need to lean over the side to look, do hold on to your swords and sticks first. Now I have my stick in the pattern B shed behind the string heddles, in this little space here underneath the B threads. So once I've got that stick in there, I'm going to put a larger sword into the same space. So that I can open it up really well and put in my dowel that will hold that subdivision while I'm weaving. And I push that towards the back. And just in case that dowel drops out or I need to take it out, I'm going to also put this gold thread in to save it. Now the gold thread needs to be tied underneath the warp. So in reality, if I pull down on this gold loop, it's going to pull down 1 in every 3 of those threads in the B shed. If I really am not sure if I've got it right, I can actually hold a mirror underneath and see that there is only 1 out of every 3 threads underneath the B pattern dowel. I can also check it by doing exactly what I do when I'm weaving to open the B pattern shed using this stick. So I'm going to bring the B pattern dowel forwards until it's very close to the string heddles, and I have the larger sword in the bee shed. When I turn that larger sword on end and I bring this dowel close to the string heddles, this little space opens up here, and that's where I would put my small sword in the pattern shed, just there. And I can see that that is indeed the correct shed that I've been wanting to save there. So now I'm all good. I can take out all my crosses, I can push all of my saver dowels and strings right to the back near my coil rod, and I'm ready to weave Kishitara. Here is what you should now have in place, ready to learn to weave Kishitara. One thing you may have noticed is that my shed roll has some hair ties, elastic bands on the end. That's because when I'm weaving a narrower warp, the whole warp can twist more easily, and it's actually quite easy for my shed roll to slip out. And I find that the elastic bands help it to stay put. One tip, when I get up and I have to release the tension on the warp by taking the back strap off, I often get my two pattern sticks and bring them up quite close to my shed roll and elastic band them to the shed roll so that they don't drop out as well. And then there's just less to put back into place when I come back to weave again. So now I can actually take my back strap off and hang the back strap up over the place where I've anchored my loom, and it'll be all ready when I come back.
In the next video, I'll give you a brief overview of the 5 Kishitara stitches that we will learn.